help you? It's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
Ooh, that was a good break. You ready to hear my list?
I am super excited to hear your list. I am nervous that I haven't I haven't seen any of them, but I feel like based on our conversations, I feel like maybe we have. But go ahead and start.
I will be shocked. I will be shocked. So first of all, I got to do 2 minute drill of my honorable mentions. I hope that's okay. Um,
Sounds good.
okay, and I want your mic to be hot, ready for each one I list.
My mic is hotter than hot. It's
All right.
caliente.
So unfortunately, this is the first one out. Get Out by Jordan Peele.
No, great film. I did see it on HBO. I didn't see it in the theaters. Very interesting take on what it feels like to be a black person in a white neighborhood. uh
Right?
yeah, yeah. It was cool. I'm happy for Jordan Peele. Great.
I am. Oh, no, continue.
Yeah, great African American director. Also, I loved him in Key and Peele, such a funny guy.
Right.
But the fact that he was into like the horror thriller genre made it even better because that's a area other than like I think Candyman, where African American presence, other than being a victim of like a killer or a monster. It was great to see that there was a lead as well as a director for a thriller horror film.
Right. I think for those reasons, it's very significant. I mean, Jordan Peele is a director and comedian of our time. Get Out really captured just the subtle racism in kind of, you could call them fair weather, um, I guess, white allies, and
Hmm.
that the parents are like, oh, I would have voted for Obama for a third term if I could have. And then they're evil, like they're just straight up evil.
Yeah.
And so the complacency that was depicted, and also the best friend who is just like,
Oh
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
he's like, this is sus, right? You gotta
Yeah, that was funny. I like that
don't
part.
do it. So
Okay, mad
overall,
respect, mad
yeah,
respect. I respect that.
yeah. After that one, American Fiction recently came out. Have you heard of that movie?
Yes, I knew that was going to show up. I was expecting it to be in your top five. I did not expect it to be honorary mention.
Well, I just think it's too soon, and B, I don't think it leaped in. It's really in the mainstream in terms of influence, right? Like Get Out had a lot of influence, and it's widely beloved. Like I've seen lists where it's in the top 50 movies of this century. Get
Definitely
Out,
groundbreaking. Definitely
right?
groundbreaking.
And I feel guilty leaving it out, but I just had to go with my personal top five. But anyway, American Fiction, for those that don't know, it's about a writer who books don't sell. And then one day he gets an idea where he just kind of writes a spoof or an exaggeration. He calls it an autobiography. It just delves into every stereotype about a black person in America. And it's a big hit as a book. And he doesn't know what to do about it, whether he just kind of rides the lie or comes out and tells the truth. It's a very funny movie. It's very evocative. And I think it does a good job at insulting both the racism on the right and the left in American politics.
Well, what I like, I mean, other than the actor's top notch. I saw he was great in everything I've seen him on before that film.
Right,
And
Jeffrey Wright.
yeah,
Jeffrey
Jeffrey
Wright.
Wright. He was in the Hunger Games Catching Fire, and then also he was in uh Westworld before Westworld got
Oh,
bad. He
and
was
he
in the
was in Bond.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's a great actor. I love the satire about it where, like that whole idea of exploiting black culture as
For
a black
profit.
person to profit, right? And like you don't really necessarily look bad on that, but it's essentially the same thing as when I don't know. It's such a good film, and I respect that pick as well. And I'm surprised that was left out of your top five. So I am scared to hear what's in your top five.
All right, so I got, sorry, this is kind of a long list of honorable mentions. I got three more, so bear with me, bear with me. In the Heat of the Night, will probably, since I've already heard yours, this is the oldest movie that
Uh,
is in our list.
you know, I've never seen that, but I know of it because that was my era. Who was the main actor in that film?
Sidney Poitier, and there cannot be a
Oh,
list without having a Sidney Poitier movie.
okay. I agree with you. I almost put and I guess I could have it as my honorary mention to
Mhm.
Sir with Love, starring Sidney
Oh,
Poitier.
okay.
A great song, was a number one hit, but Sidney Poitier as a teacher of like a bunch of spoiled British kids was the best.
Yeah, I just loved, especially since In the Heat of the Night, won Best Picture, by the way, at the Oscars. And just the scene where he slaps the former like white plantation owner in the face, and then the white cop's just like standing there, and Endicott's like, "What are you gonna do about it?" And the cop's like, "I don't know." It was just shocking, and just overall a really powerful movie and moment in our culture, I think, especially since it's also cool as a detective movie too,
No,
right?
for sure,
Because
for sure.
they're trying to figure out a mystery, or I think it was a murder. But just overall, a very cool, well done. I think they turned it into a TV show as well.
That's awesome.
So that's got to be on there. And I also think for this next one, we have a lot of male leads, but not really any female led. So I had to
Ooh,
include
that's a huge regret of mine.
Hidden
Huge regret.
Figures is
Oh,
an honorable mention just because of that all-star black female leads, right? With Octavia Spencer and Janelle Monáe and I'm gonna butcher the name, but Henson P.
Taraj,
Henson,
Taraji.
Taraj, yeah, Taraji P. Henson.
Can I add also in
Hmm.
Hustle and Flow?
Yeah, that's definitely worth mentioning. And that movie came out recently, but it's also cool just because you're talking about the computers, not the devices, but the human computers during the space race
You know,
that helped,
that was definitely cool to see because I never knew about that.
right? I mean, me neither. And it's almost something that you would think was manufactured by Hollywood until you delve in
You
history.
definitely. I looked it up. There was no race swapping anywhere. It was all legit. So I great film. I I appreciate your honorary mentions. That no beef.
Right. And speaking of things I didn't know until the movie came out, Django Unchained. I'm surprised that was not on your list.
It was inching in. It probably would have been sixth.
That is a movie, and I've read Count of Monte Cristo. I did not know Dumas was mixed.
Ah, yeah.
I did not know Alexander Dumas was black. I thought that was just kind of a thing that, oh, what's his face? Waltz's character was making up to just get at Candy, played by, oh my gosh, Leo did a phenomenal job as a villain.
Stole that the second half of that film.
I'm
Scary.
surprised he did not get nominated for an Oscar there, but and
They made it up to him. Oh, Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx did a good job too. My
Did you know
goodness.
that that role was first offered to Will Smith?
Oh, that would look bad at
Well,
retrospectively.
I know. I heard it on an interview with Quentin Tarantino, and he offered it to Will Smith. He didn't feel comfortable with the role, and so Jamie Foxx was the next up. And I
Yeah,
think it was
well,
perfect with Jamie Foxx.
yeah, me too. Well, okay. Of those five, I'm glad you gave me some credit for the honorable mentions, right?
Mhm.
Do you approve? Do you approve?
I approve of your honorable mentions, and it's Django would probably be in my six, Hidden Figures seven,
Mhm.
and Get Out probably like 15.
15.
Not a big fan of horrors.
Oh, me neither. And yet, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, wow. I mean, it got me hooked. And I think that was one of the first gateway movies for me into really respecting the horror genre as a whole
For
in
sure.
film.
So
So,
let's get
okay,
to it. Let's
top
get to
five.
it.
Number five, I have Black Panther,
Oh man, that's such a good pick.
right? You
Oh,
cannot deny the cultural impact of Black Panther. Having a black superhero, not that, I mean, a lot of people say, oh, but what about Blade? Like they had a black superhero before. Yeah, but Wakanda Forever, right? Being able to do that, it's a motion, a symbol that has just become mainstream into our popular culture.
and
And
anyone can do it. And it's
yeah,
yeah, and it doesn't matter what race you are, but we all can relate to Wakanda forever.
right. And Blade was kind of big. I don't know, you would know because that was more of your time, but
Yeah.
Black Panther, I think because it's part of something bigger like the MCU, is why it is the most significant black superhero film, period.
And you mentioned that Blade was during my era, but you got to remember Blade was like a rated R film. It was vampires and a lot of violence. Black Panther had violence, but it's in the Marvel way, so that way it's a little more not family friendly, but a little more was it
General
di-
audience
yeah, general
oriented.
audience worthy. Yeah. You had to be a specific kind of fan to really like Blade.
Blade, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the issues addressed in Black Panther 2, as far as you take an African nation, a black nation in particular, that has the most advanced technology in the world, and what do they choose to do with that power? Do they become colonizers, or do they start an empire of sorts?
Mm.
Right? How do you treat the injustice around the world where you see uh, like just black groups of people just in poverty caused by systemic issues in the history, like you see in America or you
Hmm.
see in, other places of the world, Latin America even. So that's why that's my pick. What are your
So,
takes?
um, no, I mean, I 100% agree. I saw Black Panther debut weekend when it came out, and I loved it. I felt like it did get a little bit of like critic leeway for what it was asked to do. Uh, but I felt like it was transcending. It was definitely a moment in the industry. Uh, and I thought it was an important event for African American children or Black children worldwide to see a superhero that was taking the lead on a universal scale and as popular as it was on a universal scale.
Right. And also worth noting, one, the soundtrack, which one of the songs in the soundtrack was featured in Kendrick's Super Bowl performance.
I wanted more of
This
it.
is a, oh yeah. And then also just rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Devastating that he passed so
Yes, definitely.
unexpectedly. I think that he could have easily taken on uh becoming the face of Marvel in this next phase
Oh, for sure.
if it weren't for his passing. So that's number five.
Okay,
Moving on
cool.
to number
I
four,
like your number five. I like your number five.
bringing it back to Denzel. Remember the Titans is my number
Oh,
four movie.
so good.
That is a movie that my Turkish exchange student said it was his favorite movie when he
Wow.
when he came to live with us. I mean, and he's coming from Turkey, right? They don't watch football, right? And yet he loved that movie. Denzel does an amazing job, does a great job at least pointing out what it was like when in the 60s they started to desegregate schools
Yeah.
and started integrating just the way you mix sports with society and how everyone's on the same team. I just think it was a wonderful metaphor. and I love football. So that's what had me sold and put it in my top five.
Same. Remember the Titans? If we were to do a top 10 list of football films, easily in my top three along with Rudy. So I don't know. I'd have to think about it and rethink it before we do a list like that on our XYZ podcast. But it's definitely for sure in the top 10 and definitely in the running for number one as a top three contender. So fabulous, not fabulous film. I never say fabulous. Great film.
Yeah. And would you say that would be an honorable mention for you? I heard
No,
your
easy,
reaction.
easy, easy. Your first two, I mean, all your honorable mentions were honorable mentions, could be honorable mentions for me, and then your top two easily. And I didn't even think of Black Panther just because I was trying to think of when movies were really impactful to me. So that
Hmm.
was probably why, like in my teens to my 20s, and so that's why the movies I chose were those in that era. So that makes sense.
Right. And I haven't even lived all my 20s yet, so I'm digging
Hey,
like into
stop
my
showing off.
childhood.
Stop showing off. Me neither.
Oh, stop it.
Times two. Okay.
Okay,
Uh,
so that was at one point that was probably my favorite movie ever.
sure.
So I had to give it a shout out. Number three
Okay.
stars someone with the last name Washington, but instead of Denzel, it is John David Washington in Black Klansman.
Ooh, okay. Now,
That,
I heard a lot about this. I
oh, you
know
haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it. Okay.
Oh,
Okay, wait. I respect it without even seeing it because doesn't it star Kylo Ren in it too?
yes, Adam Driver's in
Adam
it.
Driver. Yeah, I love him. I don't know why it never got on my playlist, but all I've heard were good things. Tell me more about it.
Okay, this is a movie that, keep in mind, was nominated for Best Picture in the same year as Green Book. And I think it was robbed of the top prize, personally. And it came out, right? This was 2018. I was able to, I think this was my first rated R movie in a movie theater. I got ID'd for the first time at a theater to go see this movie. So it was a memorable experience for me to be able to feel like I was really becoming an adult. So number one, that's why it's impactful for me. Number two, just kind of what you said about Boys in the Hood. This is a movie about something that happened in the past where you have a town that hires its first black cop and he goes undercover to weed out the KKK in the area. And just the themes, you could see a lot of parallels. And Spike Lee, who directs the movie, made it very obvious, if not too obvious, of how he interpreted the story and how he connected it to present day events. And the ending is live footage of a terrorist attack that happened within the year of the movie being filmed.
Wild. That's definitely wild.
So
Wow.
that is
Yeah.
why it's in my top three, for sure, just because of I think it has a lot of cultural impact, if not messaging impactfulness and meaningfulness, especially focusing on a good black cop or just a cool story and bringing up the recency of the KKK as well. Uh, just that movie really, it shook me. I was stunned leaving the
All
theater.
all I've heard was how powerful the film was and how amazing. And wasn't it like one of the first movies from Spike Lee after a long break?
Yeah, he hasn't done a lot of movies, and I think this was one of his best of everything that I've seen. He returned to form after maybe not having his best
Yeah. Uh
stretch.
I do want to add just kind of a side note. Remember in Django, the clans meeting?
Oh
How
yeah.
how that was directed to make it almost like a slapstick comedy segment where the masks didn't have big enough holes for the That was
Yeah,
pretty funny.
that was good. Oh my gosh. Speaking of Spike Lee, this could be another honorable mention, but Malcolm X with
Oh yeah.
Denzel.
Oh, there's our boy Denzel, man. He just shows up.
That's just, man, another good one. But
He's
anyway,
okay. Go ahead.
that's
Uh,
my 5 through 3. What are your thoughts so far?
uh, good. I haven't seen Black Klansman, but I know about its impact and I respect it.
Mhm. Okay, I'm gonna go for my number two pick, do something different.
Okay.
It's a kind of movie that we have not mentioned on our podcast or on our list yet. This movie came out fairly recently. I'm wondering if you think you know what direction I'm going to go here.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. Recently. Oh, okay.
What's your guess?
Uh, the Green Book.
No, stop it.
I know you just mentioned like you felt like Klansman should have got the
That's
award over
better.
that.
All right.
I did actually see Green Book though, and I actually liked it because I love Viggo Mortensen's character because I love that scene, like just any
Yeah.
scene where he was trying, he started off a little bit of racist,
Yeah.
but then he started meeting, under, like learning the guy and becoming friends.
Right. It's a safe movie, but anyway, my pick for number two, I could only put in one of these movies. It's part of a series, Spider-Man Across the
Oh my
Spider-Verse.
gosh, that's so good, so good.
You seen that movie?
I've seen them both, and I love them both.
I picked the
Oh,
second one intentionally just because it really hones in on the idea of Miles's identity as being the one Spider-Man who
exactly,
was not supposed to exist.
exactly. I love it.
And it just plays to, oh my gosh, when those two movies came out, you're like, huh? Who is this? Because Tom Holland's Spider-Man just came out,
Mm-hmm.
right? Venom was in the works. It feels like a cash grab. It's like we have live action Spider-Man. Why do we also need at the same time not only animated Spider-Man, but a Spider-Man of color? Like who is Miles Morales? I did not know who he was. I don't read comic books.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So I did. So I knew that it's I knew about him in the comics. He was well known in the book world, but we never knew that he would become a pop culture mainstay once that first film came out.
oh my goodness. And I see kids now that say, I want to be not Spider-Man. They don't say Spider-Man, Miles Morales.
Yeah,
They say, I want to be Miles
they
Morales.
want to be the Spider-Man that wears the Jordans. Like it's kind of like it's so iconic.
Right? It totally uh, takes Spider-Man, and really the entire film is about the multiverse of the different ways you can interpret Spider-Man and who Spider-Man can be. And it just shows how cool Spider-Man can be if you put it in this flavor or this kind of universe, right? Right? Like
Yeah.
even for girls, Ghost Spider or Spider-Gwen,
Yeah, Spider
her
Gwen.
character has been influential for young girls as well.
Well, because she's a very strong character, even before Miles was able to just like find himself as Spider-Man.
Right? And they just do such a good job, like layering those two characters and making them compelling and making you believe in who they are, that they are worthy, that they are valuable, that they are not a contraption by the media to be, diverse or anything. They're just really well done and thought out characters, and they're individual. They are unique. And Miles's whole MO is that he's going to do his own thing and set himself apart from what people think Spider-Man is supposed to be.
Well, and if you're just thinking of like a general audience member, they can watch that film and you fall in love with the characters and the story. And not once do you think, oh, they just race swapped to make more money or things like that, right? Or to make it more diverse. No, this was a character with a story. They told that story and it was a great story and everyone loved it. And
Right. And it's
they want both. They want all the different Spider-Man too. Like it's just like and it's just it he Miles definitely is important to the like the Puerto Rican culture, the African American culture, and just simply the American culture because he represents kind of like that melting pot uh
Right.
of a character.
And just kind of the American dream of like you can come from anywhere, overcoming adversity. Spider-Man is about being the underdog when it's all said and done. That's who Spider-Man is. He's the youngest Avenger and he has the biggest chip on his shoulder. I mean, his backstory is always the most heartbreaking, right? Of losing his uncle.
Yeah, yeah,
And
totally. We can all relate to that.
right, all right. What's your guess for my number one? It's time.
Oh man, I mean, I totally, all but Black Klansman, which I respect. I love all your picks so far, and man, I don't even know. Like I know that whatever you pick, I feel like if the number one that you pick, I'm gonna feel like I dropped the ball and it should have been in my top five based
Hmm.
on your picks leading up to it.
Well, I just think we went in different directions because yours is coming from more of a Generation X perspective,
Oh, for sure.
and it's totally valid. Like I could see 50% of people having the same exact list as you.
No, for sure.
Like I have no problem with it. And I just think it's cool how we both represent the different aspects, the different genres of African American films.
Well, exactly. Like yours, I love how yours is very retrospective and then also like forward thinking. Mine was emotional, right? Like
Mhm.
I felt a connection with the film because of the style, the emotions, and the things I could relate to it. Uh, and yeah, so I love that we actually did this for the podcast. I'm actually proud of ourselves for
Yeah.
doing this.
And I'm kind of glad we had no overlap because I think you thought there would be.
I did. I did think we were gonna have at least one to two, but that's okay because that means our listeners are introduced to 10 plus more films that in this podcast to maybe consider watching. Uh, we didn't spoil anything. At least I don't think
Right.
we did, but so many good films out there.
Yeah. Which one from your list did you think I would have put on mine?
Oh gosh. Um, let me see. Let me take a quick.
Just because I mentioned to you that I'd seen Training Day, did you think I would put that in there?
Definitely. Because I remember us having a conversation about it a while ago, and I felt
Mhm.
like we connected when we talked about it, but I forgot that it made you uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's an intense movie. But anyway, so my number one movie
Let's
on my
go.
list is 12 Years a Slave.
Oh, dude. Gosh. That's a good one. That
Best
is a good
Picture
one.
winner,
That's a good one.
Best Picture winner, the story of Solomon Northup,
Oh,
the man who was free that got kidnapped and sold into slavery for 12 years.
jeez.
And
That
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 movie, I showed that to one of my friends who's also a big film guy.
yeah.
What he said when we had our conversation, we like to debrief movies that we watch together.
Yeah, sure.
He's like, I can understand why people would deny that the Holocaust happened because when you are faced with the reality of just how awful human beings were or are,
Yeah, for sure.
you don't want to believe it.
No.
And everything depicted in this was unbelievably violent evil.
No. I remember the cringe and shivers I had when Paul Giamatti was the slave seller.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
just the way he described these guys and like just treated them like pieces of meat.
Just
Eh,
yeah, he's like, "No, your name is this. That's not your name." I wept watching this movie
Yeah.
because it's about a man whose identity is stripped away from him, and at the end he takes it back. He's like, "No, these are the names of my children. This is the maiden name of my wife. I am who he says I am. No one can take my identity away from me. I know deep down who I am. I know I know who made me, right? If you and he just never forgot deep down who his identity was.
Yeah.
And that moved me to tears.
No, yeah. I mean, for sure. I like that you brought in that, I guess, that analogy of like, no one wants to believe the Holocaust ever existed, or if you think about Japan, no one wants to believe like all the atrocities they committed to China back in, like,
Hmm.
they try not, like no one wants to believe that. And I think it is important that film reminds us just a little bit with, just to remind us that, hey, you know what? We did, there were some bad things that happened back then, but we want to make sure that you remember that they were bad, at least in this little, in this little snippet of art that you can, so that way it never happens again, at least in the free world where,
Hmm.
but yeah, that film is so good. It's definitely like a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 for me. It's close. I'm loosely thinking about it right
Oh,
now.
oh, it's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Okay, I'll go
Could
10 out of
this,
10. That's a 10 out of 10.
so this is the XYZ first 10 out of 10
Seal of
movie.
approval. Seal of
Seal of
approval.
approval. This is a must-see movie if you have not seen it.
10 out of
We
10.
both
Yes.
agree that it is a 10 out of 10. That means, considering how different we can be on how we rate films, that means it's a pretty stinking good movie.
I'm glad you chose the films that you did because I saw 4 out of 5 and all of your honorable mentions. So that's kind of cool that we experienced the same impact in pop culture recently. And I think it was great that we end with 12 Years a Slave because that is a definite struggle. And I just want to shout out some of the other actors in that film, like Brad Pitt as that carpenter laborer worker.
The Canadian.
Yeah, the Canadian. What a great point of view. What a great character, and just
Mhm.
he was a likable guy. And he knew like this is not right. Like what he's witnessing, it's like this is not good.
Right. And it's an unfortunate reminder that along the journey, right, like white people had to take a stand and, right, help when Black Americans asked for it or they needed that. And you can't be on the bench. And that's something that even MLK said. The most dangerous thing for the civil rights movement is the neutral white person that just kind of is a bystander and does not get involved in the game. And that's important for everyone to get all those kinds of perspectives in recognizing Black History Month.
For sure, for sure.
It is
Wow.
not exclusive.
You know what? This might be my favorite podcast episode so far out of 3. Such a good, oh
Yeah.
man, I just love the conversations. So uh do you have any like final thoughts?
Yeah. I feel like you have seen more of these movies than I have. I feel a little embarrassed and I need to do my homework and watch those movies you recommended because
You're
I've
right. I didn't even
I've
think about that.
I've heard of several. I mean, okay, I heard of Boys in the Hood. I heard of Friday. Those are both movies that I hear are pretty iconic. I have not seen Hustle and Flow, and I have not seen American Gangster or really heard of those movies, if not for you. So,
Well, this is the first time we've been in a conversation where I've seen more movies than you. The movies that we brought up in a
right.
conversation. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of a good feeling for myself. Just kidding. Uh,
Yeah.
but but anyway, hey, it is Black History Month. Please, continue to celebrate the history of our African American brothers and sisters, and enjoy the film. There's lots of films that we just shared with you. Please, if you find the time, you see it on Netflix, click it, give it a view. It comes recommended from XYZ if it's on our list, so you know it's good.
Oh, for sure. And it's not, we're not giving you guys cheesy, sappy Instagram posts. We're not giving you books, right? Who has time to read those anyway? We're giving you entertainment value as well when we
Yes.
give these recommendations. And I highly, highly encourage you to see a couple of these in honor of Black History Month because it's important to seek out stories or movies that you might not normally watch. Like what BDC recommended, that's not the kind of movie I would normally watch, nor have I watched. Yet
Yeah.
I want to do the homework because I value BDC's opinion and I trust you.
And on my end, at first I was shocked that Jordo hasn't even seen many of the films that I selected, but it makes sense. But I am so proud of the films he chose for his top five because those could have easily been in my top five if I had a different a different point of view on this topic. But I'm glad we had different points of view because it helped diversify the films that we chose, and
Mhm.
then you guys get more films to hear about.
Right. And before we go, I want to end with this. Of my top five, what is your top?
Of your top five,
Yeah.
easily 12 Years a Slave.
Hmm.
How
So
about mine?
I'm glad I put it. Well, okay, that's not fair. I haven't seen all of yours.
It's okay.
I
You could say
think
Training Day. You could say Training Day because I love it
from
too.
what I've heard, Boys in the Hood is an exceptional movie. I can't fault you for putting it number one.
Okay, I respect that. Just know that it
Right.
is available on Netflix, I think. So,
Oh,
it's streaming
really?
for free, I
That's
think.
good. I should give it a watch. Unfortunately, I was reading something that wasn't even about movies. It was like a sports article, and what is referenced in the article is a spoiler for Boys in the Hood. And I'm like, oh, great, because there's nothing I hate more than spoilers for
But
movies.
hey, you know what? That happens every day in the hood. So is it truly a spoiler?
Ah, but man, this
You
is
got
why I try to watch all of these movies, because I never want to be out of the loop. I never want to be out of the reference.
enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the show. Hopefully you got something out of it.
Coming to you from Jordo, respect film, respect it.
Hey, peace.
Peace.